Welcome to Pathways to Greatness, where we explore the journeys of exceptional individuals who have achieved remarkable success in their fields. Whether you're an aspiring athlete, a business leader, or simply someone striving to reach your full potential, this podcast is your guide to unlocking the greatness within you. Join us as we dive into inspiring stories, practical strategies, and the mindset shifts that can transform your path to greatness. Let's embark on this journey together. Hey, and welcome to Pathways to Greatness podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Forrester, and today is a solo episode. And I haven't done one of these in a little while, which has been pretty cool because I've had a lot of great guests. And so if you haven't heard some of them, go back 2 or 3 episodes, hear some of the last ones, and check it out. Again, we're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You're probably listening on one of the 2 of those. And then also, I just want to encourage you to go to the YouTube channel, and it's Pathways to Greatness. And if you just search for that, you should be able to pop up and find our channel. And the reason being is that it's cool. I'd like to grow that over there. And so if you have a chance, go pop over to the Pathways to Greatness YouTube channel and check us out. Also, before I get started with this is, is please leave a review. And as I'm trying to grow this show, and it's not for anything from a monetary perspective, it's just the guests that I bring on have such valuable information. I really want more people to hear what they have to say. And so I encourage you, please leave a 5-star review. But if it's a 1-star, it's a 1-star. But don't just leave the star, whether it's 1 or 5, but leave something that you've received impact from, something that jumped out of one of your favorite episodes or the most recent episode that you've listened to. And then if it's a 1-star, give me feedback. We need feedback to be able to improve and continue to grow and do more. So I don't do this often where I'm asking you for something. So I'm just going to ask you to do that. Check out our YouTube and leave a review. I really appreciate it. That way more people can find the show. I've got to complete my thought. Okay, so recently I listened to, I can't say read anymore, but I listened to the book Mind Gym. And if you're looking for a great book with some very good practical information on how to develop the mind, this book is fantastic. And I actually enjoyed listening to it. Sometimes, depending on the way the narrator, if it's not the author itself, and the other narrator, but I've had some where I've listened to the narrator, it wasn't that great. But this one I liked. It kept my attention the whole way through. So what I wanted to do is to give you some basics about the book. And so my best friend and assistant, ChatGPT, helped me put together a good outline of the book. So I can't say that I did it on my own. And so I wanted to go through the key points that ChatGPT, and I agree, because after looking over the outline and doing some tweaks, it turned out perfect for in my mind that you would appreciate. So without further ado, so we're going to talk about that. One of the key things is training your mind. And if you've listened to any of these episodes, you know I'm a firm believer that mental performance and the mind is a skill to be trained. So positive mindset, growth mindset, I would say the vast majority of the world's population do not have naturally a growth mindset or a positive mindset. It's just, we're in that protection mode. We want to seek comfort. We want to not accept responsibility in many situations. But with a lot of training, you can be different from other people, and that's having a strong mindset. So one of the quotes from the book is, the mind is like a muscle. The more you train it, the stronger it gets. Completely agree with that. All right. So first point, the power of mind in sports. How our thoughts influence our performance. If we think we can succeed, we're more likely to act in ways that make success happen. The example is Michael Jordan's mentality. And in that, there's the example where Michael Jordan wasn't just physically talented, his mindset set him apart. And if you've had a chance to watch the Chicago Bulls documentary on Netflix. It's absolutely amazing. Now, he's a little scary. It's kind of like Goggins in a sense, but you can't deny the mindset that he had to win, to compete, but to be the best. Like, he wanted to be the best. He wanted to dominate his opponent. And, talking about David Goggins, he wanted to take their soul. He wanted to do so much that almost that he wanted to embarrass them. He wanted to perform that well. And you can temper that to some extent, but what it was the mindset to train, to be disciplined. He wanted to be the best player on the court. Kobe was like that as well. Jordan believed in his ability to make game-winning shots because he put in the work and visualized success. He didn't focus on past failures, but stayed in the moment, knowing every shot has a new opportunity. Now, those 2 points. So the first one was he believed in his ability to make game-winning shots. Now, was it because he was the most talented on the court? Maybe. Was it because he had a massive ego? Possibly. But what it came to is the ego was a result of his preparation. So if you want to be confident in showing up and doing things well and not being scared in, difficult and high stakes situations, be prepared. Firefighters, they're not afraid to do their job because they're so well prepared. Military personnel, they're not afraid to do their job because they're so well prepared. If you're an accountant, whatever your profession is, you're not afraid to take on responsibilities in the areas that you're most prepared and comfortable in. Where we get sheepish and shy, it's when we don't have the preparation necessary. So for my student athletes out there, if you're worried about a test and you're nervous about a test, why are you nervous about the test? Might be because you feel like you haven't prepared enough. Is when you're prepared and you go in, that's usually when the nerves or the excitement may not be there. I know when I went back to take my real estate exam that there were nerves there, but I felt confident when I sat down. Now, whether or not I knew I was going to pass or not, that I had done the work. I had put in a lot of work, so much so that, my kids were like, "Why are you in here again?" I was like, "Because I want to make sure that I know this information so I can pass my real estate exam." And I did. So one of the quotes is, "You can't outperform your self-image." And self-image comes from confidence. Self-image comes from your preparation to know that you're ready to go. So think about that quote. You can't outperform your self-image. So here's an exercise. And this is the layer that I wanted to add into this episode, is to create action. I know on previous episodes I've talked about, don't just listen to these shows, really try to take steps into applying the things that you listen to. Because I'll admit, I'm a big consumer of information and I don't do as much application as I should. So I need to flip that, consume less and apply more, because the consuming, it quenches our thirst. It helps us feel like we've done something, but we really haven't done anything. So you need to make sure that your consumption and your application are as closely aligned as possible. So here's an application moment. Write down a limiting belief you have about yourself as an athlete. If you're not an athlete, as a person, then rewrite it as a positive belief. This is good, and it's going to be challenging. So think about, again, writing down a limiting belief you have about yourself as an athlete, as a person, as a coach, as a parent, whatever lens that you want to view this in, and you need to be very specific in the lens, then rewrite it as a positive belief. This is the beginning of your training. This is the beginning of you changing the mindset of you're not capable and you're not ready, or you're not skilled enough, or whatever It may be, this is the beginning of that. So this episode is going to challenge you to take action. All right. Second one, confidence and positive self-talk. Confidence isn't something you're born with. It's something you build through preparation and self-talk. Again, we've talked about this on almost every episode of the importance of what you say to yourself and what comes out of your mouth, because what comes out of your mouth is programming your brain to know, okay, this is what he thinks because this is what he says. And that's why, Chad Wright talks about in a long race, just say, I never get tired. Because once those words come out of your mouth that you're tired, that you're hurt, that you're frustrated, that it's hot, all these things, your brain, that's all it hears and that's all it's going to think. And so it's going to take more to get that out of your brain. So it's important to really put the right things in there to accomplish the things that you want to accomplish. So the example is the golfer's affirmation. So Mac tells the story of a professional golfer who struggled with self-doubt and negative thoughts during tournaments. His coach had him start saying affirmations before each shot. I'm a great putter. I trust my swing. I play with confidence. Over time, his confidence improved, and so did his performance. So the quote, it's not who you are that holds you back. It's who you think you're not. Let me reread that one. It's not who you let me read it all in one word, in one statement. It's not who you are that holds you back. It's who you think you're not. So the last part, it's who you think you're not. So if you've convinced yourself that you're not a good parent, if you've convinced yourself that you don't have an abundance in your finances, if you've convinced yourself that you're not a good cook, if you've convinced yourself you're not a good friend, if you've convinced yourself that you're not healthy, all those things will happen. So it's not who you are that holds you back. It's who you think you're not. So this is where having positive self-talk, having a mission statement, it's having a true belief. If you're not where you want to be, then you need to write down where you want to be and then start to plan on that. So here's your exercise. Create a personal confidence statement. Example, I am a strong, focused athlete, and repeat it every morning and before competition. There is no substitute for repetition with self-talk. As I've shared before, is I wrote a mission statement for myself now, goodness, seven or so years ago. And because it was who I wanted to be. And it was not who I was. And it was not who I was telling myself that I wanted to be and was. And so it was I was affirming the quote about it's who you think you're not. I was convincing myself I wasn't the person that I wanted to be. And so I wrote down that mission statement. I read it multiple times a day, every single day. I have it. I still have it here in front of the computer. I have it over here. I still have it on my bathroom mirror. I used to have it in my car, have it on my phone. So I have it everywhere that I needed to look at. So whenever I felt like the negativity was creeping in, that I was not the person that I was believing that I wasn't the person that I really was or wanted to be, then it took me reading that to remind myself that's who I'm going to show up as. So it became my action statement. So I encourage you to do that on a regular basis. Write it down, sticky notes, wherever, your phone screen, whatever it's going to take for you to start to believe that and create the repetition of reading that. So the next one that it talks about in the book, visualization and mental rehearsal. Visualization is a powerful tool that elite athletes use to prepare mentally before competing. Example, Olympic athletes and mental rehearsal. Mack describes how Olympic skiers and gymnasts mentally run through their routines before performing. Studies show that visualizing success activates the same brain pathways as physically practicing. Athletes who consistently visualize their success tend to perform better under pressure. Quote, your imagination is your preview of life's coming attraction. So this is fantastic. And this is the one thing that I don't do as much as I should. And I know the athletes that I work with definitely don't. And most people roll their eyes when you talk about visualization. But all your high level athletes and performers do this without failure, I guess. They do it, all of them. And I was watching a great example are the Blue Angel pilots. I was watching the documentary on that, and they sit around and they do so much visualization and preparation is they sit in their chair and they have their hands where the throttle is, where the stick is, where everything is, and they take the breaths. They do everything exactly the same because it's life or death within inches and feet for them to make sure that they do everything properly. So I encourage you to do the same thing. So here's the exercise. So close your eyes and imagine yourself executing your sport's most challenging move perfectly. Try to include all 5 senses in the visualization. So Brian Cain talks about creating a mind movie. And that to me makes a better description for me to know what I'm being asked to do from a visualization standpoint. And in this mind movie, you're the main character and you want to perform perfectly every time. And you want to do this multiple times. And the great thing about visualization, it could only take seconds. It doesn't require you to sit down for 30 minutes and do something. This is something you can do in the morning, you can do before practice, visualize what your practice would look like, and you continue to do that over and over. Your brain is going to remember that as it's real. The other thing that I would encourage you to do if you're an athlete or an athlete is to how do you respond to the unknown? So what happens if you're an offensive lineman and you see that they're crossing your face and you just didn't get that first hit? How do you recover? Practice that. Practice these situations that could be, all right, I didn't do what I needed to do from day one, from the snap, which is going to happen. We're human. How do I recover? Practice those scenarios as well. If you're not an athlete, think about what you're doing. If you're in sales and you're going to have a conversation, what does that conversation sound like? I'm telling you from a personal example, when I prepared for a call, I practiced my opening, my close, the questions I was going to ask. It went far better when I went in and spoke to someone and much more natural than if I just went in and winged it. So visualization is powerful. All right. So overcoming adversity and fear of failure. This one's tough. This one's really tough. Failure is part of sports, but how you respond to it determines your success. I'll reread that and make it more applicable for everybody listening. Failure is a part of life, but how you respond to it determines your success. So Derek Jeter's early struggles. As a rookie, Jeter had a terrible first season in the minor leagues. He made 56 errors. Instead of giving up, he focused on learning from each mistake, making adjustments, and improving. Growth mindset. He later became one of the greatest shortstops in Major League history because he refused to let failure define him. Failure isn't fatal, but failure to change might be. So I've struggled with this for so long of the fear of failure kept me from doing things. Or if I was in the situation of Derek Jeter, I would have gotten so frustrated that first year. And history has shown so many athletes, so many people have failed early and just gave up. They just said, you know what? I'm not cut out for sports. I'm not cut out for baseball, or I'm not cut out for the position that everybody thinks I should play because look, I made 56 errors. Well, you can either have a fixed mindset and say, oh, well, I'm not going to be able to do anything, or you can shift your mindset to a growth mindset and say, yeah, I made 56 errors. Now let's go back through and figure out what some of those things are. And then your success begins of maybe it's not completely eliminating errors because we're human. It's going from 56 to 23 or 56 to 30. And you're starting to make plays instead of missing plays. And it could be super minor if you go back and you just realistically put your ego aside and say, what are those little things that I need to do to make it better? I'll give you a sales example. I was working with a rep and they just really struggled with the close. That's the technical term of asking for something at the very end. And sales were following along with those lines of not having a great close. Well, the more we looked at it, it wasn't necessarily the close that was causing the problem. They weren't asking any questions to understand the needs of the customer up front. And once they made that small tweak and asked a different question, they uncovered a need, which made it a much more natural part of the conversation to say, well, then, using our product just makes sense based on what you shared. And then the customer's like, yeah, you're absolutely right. And then sales changed and you started to see an upswing in that. So they could have said, well, I'm just not good at sales. Well, we all have those moments where we say we're not good at something because we're frustrated because of the expectations that we put on ourselves. But that's where you need to look past failure and have a growth mindset and say, okay, I failed. And that's part of life. That's part of trying is failing. If you're not failing, you're not trying. Again, a great documentary is about Imagineer, and it's about Walt Disney. And he challenged his Imagineers that if they weren't failing more than 50% of the time, they weren't trying. And so he would push them. If they're like, oh, we got it worked. He's like, nope. How many times did you fail? Well, we didn't. It's like, well, let's push the limits. Let's go. And then you started to see some really exciting things. And Thomas Edison, I mean, again, the history books is filled with failures who changed the world because of those failures, and they just never gave up. So make your superpower never giving up. Here's your exercise. Write down a past failure and identify 3 lessons you learned from it and how you can use those lessons moving forward. Great, great exercise. We can all write that down, and we've all learned from our failures, whether we admit it or not. And this is where I like writing things down, is because it will become more clear when you write it down. So again, the exercise is write down a past failure and identify 3 lessons you learned from it. How can you use those lessons moving forward? All right, the next one, the importance of being present. Many athletes get caught up in worrying about past mistakes or future outcomes instead of focusing on the present. That defines Mr. Forrester right here. Example, Tom Brady's one play at a time mindset. Brady never lets a bad play affect the next one. He resets his mind immediately and focuses on what's next. This mindset has helped him win comeback victories, including Super Bowl 51, where the Patriots overcame a 28-3 deficit at halftime. It's critical. Play one play at a time. Today plus today plus today plus today plus today creates your legacy. We're in it for the moment. We can't continue to project things into tomorrow and then worry about yesterday. We got to stay in today. So, the Bible states, don't worry about tomorrow because tomorrow has its own worries. Just be present, be where your feet are, understand that, take care of now. And then now we'll worry about, well, not worry, but now will help you prepare for later. And we can only impact now. And I'm preaching to myself as well, because I have a terrible habit of looking too far ahead. And when I'm looking too far ahead, I'm not looking at what could go well. I'm looking at what's bad. And my mind goes from 0 to 60 pretty fast. And don't Google something either. especially if you don't feel well. If you Google it, you're going to see all of the symptoms that you want to see that makes you think that you're dying or you have some serious disease or a serious issue. So just kind of deal with it and go see a professional, but then challenge and make sure you have all of the information that you need. But anyways, so the next one is the importance. We talked about the importance of being present, be now. Have something that once you start to recognize that you're doing that, how do you release that? And then how do you refocus? So I've talked about the importance of self-awareness. You have to be self-aware when you feel like you're starting to get out over your skis and things are getting a little out of control. How do you stop, recognize that, and then how do you release that moment to get you back and refocused? It could be next play. It could be, I've talked about where I have these bands on my arm. If it gets really bad, I'll pop a band. You could slap your hands, whatever is required for you to just snap out of it and then move on and then get refocused back into focusing on now. This is a skill. This is not easy. You're going to be challenged with this every single day. But like we talked about with Jeter's errors, if you can just cut it down from a lot to a little, huge success, huge success. All right, so the exercise before your next game or practice, take a deep breath and commit to focusing only on the present moment. Same thing in life. Just if you're going into something and you're getting ready to get out of the car and go into work and you're not real excited about it, take a deep breath and commit to focusing only on the present moment. You can only deal with that moment that you're in right then, and how are you going to show up the way you want to show up. So see how all these things play together and build on one another? All right, so closing thoughts. So we're going to recap the main lessons from Mind Gym. Your thoughts shape your reality. Confidence comes from preparation and positive self-talk. Visualization or mind movies can boost performance. Failure is a learning opportunity. Staying present leads to better focus and performance. So here's your call to action. Choose one mental training exercise to try this week and share your experience. Please share your experience with me. So I want to thank you for listening. I want to thank you for hanging out with me this long. This is going to be episode 119, I believe. And so many of you that are listeners are faithful listeners. And I appreciate every single one of you and appreciate you listening to this one today. So the final quote that I want to leave you with is, champions aren't made in the gym. Champions are made from something that they have deep inside them: a desire, a dream, a vision. Have a great day. Thanks for joining us on the Pathways to Greatness podcast. We hope that today's conversation inspired you to take steps towards your own greatness. Remember, every journey starts with a single step. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who might benefit. Actually, share it with 3 people that you might think it might benefit. Until next time, keep pursuing your passions and carving your own path to greatness. Take care.